to Indo Politics. The Dáil is in recess this week, so all is quiet, except that is on the Western Front, because political intrigue this week is focusing on the Kingdom, where one of the country's most powerful ever political dynasties has succumbed to the split. I'll be discussing this with our political reporter Aisling Moloney, and more good news for the Soc Dems. Aisling, we'll start with the big story, the only real big political story of the week, and that is what's going on with the Healy-Raes. Brendan Behan first coined the phrase that the first item on the agenda of any political party or movement in Ireland is the split. Now, this power political, not just family, but movement of the Healy-Raes has succumbed to the split. You might tell us what's going on.
So this was a dramatic week in the Kingdom and for the Healy-Rae dynasty. So people might be aware of Michael Healy-Rae and Danny Healy-Rae, who are both sitting TDs for the Kerry constituency and are both brothers. They're the first time ever that two siblings have sat in the same constituency at the same time in the Dáil chamber, and have been part of this political family that have reigned large on the polls in Kerry for many decades. But this week, the big news is that there's been a falling out between the brothers, to put it, I suppose, bluntly. And this stems, Mary, from the fuel protests. People will remember a couple of weeks ago, there was, tractors, hauliers clogging up the roads here, looking for a better deal on excise around fuel in relation to fuel spiking around the Iran war. And there was a confidence motion in the government after those fuel protests. And of course, this came down to, the government TDs supporting the government and making sure that they got through this confidence motion and it didn't absolve the government. But one of the key watches in that was on the Healy-Raes and how they would vote, because they are independent TDs. The two of them are supporting the government at the moment they were supporting the government with Michael Healy-Rae in as a junior minister in the Department of Agriculture. And at the time of the fuel protests, Michael Healy-Rae, as a junior minister, was in the room negotiating with the hauliers and the farm contractors and other sectors of society that were looking for a better deal around fuel. At that time, he was negotiating with those parties. He was in the meetings. And then come the weekend after that big fuel package was announced, Michael Healy-Rae went out on social media to say he was supporting the government in the confidence motion. But then Danny Healy-Rae goes on Radio Kerry the following day on Monday, just before the confidence motion on the Tuesday, and said that Micheál Martin, the leader of Fianna Fáil, and Simon Harris, the leader of Fine Gael, had to resign, and he called for them to step down and said that he wouldn't be supporting the government.
And he didn't tell his brother he was going to go on radio.
This was a shock to Michael Healy-Rae. Now, at the time, we didn't know the ins and outs of whether this was a shock to Michael Healy-Rae or not. It seemed to be certainly a bungled choreography around their messaging, and then Michael Healy-Rae stood up in the Dáil on the Tuesday and said that he couldn't support the government and he was resigning his position. And then all went quiet. Michael Healy-Rae wasn't around the Dáil for notably a couple of days. Then when he was around, he looked decidedly crestfallen, as did his son Jackie Healy-Rae Jr., who was his advisor in the Department of Agriculture. Both of them looking crestfallen, and there were certainly questions about whether the brothers were talking, a lot of rumours that they weren't on speaking terms. Then this week, Radio Kerry does a 40-minute long interview with Michael Healy-Rae in studio, talking about the fallout from that decision, from resigning from government after Danny Healy-Rae went on radio to say that he wouldn't support the government. And it was a bombshell interview. I actually went back again to listen to it, to kind of listen to Michael Healy-Rae's voice and how he sounded. And he sounded emotional, like, truth be told. And I suppose he would often be quite glib, very quick-witted, smart to come back with comebacks in interviews, and always kind of have a shrewd way of answering a difficult question. But he was very frank in the interview on Radio Kerry, and basically said that this was the toughest political chapter in his book, which is a strong word. He said basically that Danny Healy-Rae, his brother, started a fire that I couldn't stop when he went on Radio Kerry and said he wasn't supporting the government, and then that forced Michael Healy-Rae's hand. And he talked at long terms about how Kerry has lost political influence by losing a junior minister in the Department of Agriculture. He talked a lot about how his father, Jackie Healy-Rae Sr., had for many years told him that he needed to get into politics, get into the Dáil and work his way up literally the floors in the Department of Agriculture until he was near the top and he could assert influence. He also spoke a lot about how the influence wasn't just in his ministry, but it was across the government. That they got money for the Killarney bypass that was kind of stalled for many years. In previous years, it got no funding, but now it has funding. And he said in this interview that can't be taken away. But what was taken away with the decision from the Healy-Raes in April was the fact that they are not at that table anymore. They are not in government.
And he clearly blames his own brother for that.
And this is where the cookie will really start to crumble very messily, especially when it comes to a family situation. So they're brothers, they're both occupying seats, but they now have their own succession plans playing out. They both have children who are grown, who are in politics, who are established councillors under the Healy-Rae brand in different areas of Kerry and are there with a long time.
Maybe before we go to the next generation of Healy-Raes, you might take us back to the previous generation. Yes. And how did this political dynasty come into being in the first place?
So this goes back, I suppose, to their father, Jackie Healy-Rae Sr., who was a Fianna Fáil operative. He was a director of elections for many people down in the kingdom until he himself wanted to step up to the plate and be on the general election ticket around 1997. But Fianna Fáil denied him that chance, and I think that was one of the biggest, probably, political missteps that Fianna Fáil have ever made in any constituency, because Jackie Healy-Rae Sr. then went on to contest that election, that general election, and he stormed home and got a seat. And after that, then he wasn't unseated at any general election. He went forward until 2011. He announced in 2008 that he was going to retire, and at various points through that as well, he did support Fianna Fáil in government. So there was a Progressive Democrats and Fianna Fáil government just after that 1997 election, and he supported them. He gave them a vote for that as well. And then he also had a confidence and supply arrangement around 2008 with Fianna Fáil again.
And Michael, on Radio Kerry this week, did speak about how his father stood by government through tough times and that he had wanted to do the same, and his father had taught him how to do that. But Michael took over the family seat in 2011, and he had such a massive vote share that in 2016 decided to bring his brother on board on his coattails. So you might tell us about that.
Yeah, so as you say, Jackie Healy-Rae, he said that he wasn't standing in the next general election in 2008, nearing his 80s at this stage. And then it was passed on to his son, Michael Healy-Rae. So you can see there that the succession plan was Michael in the first instance, but as you say, the popularity of the brand Healy-Rae at that stage was nearing 3 decades of instalment in Kerry. And so it's no surprise that working on that, developing that and having a smooth transition to the next generation, that it did instill confidence in people in the constituency and got them a second seat. So he brought in Danny, as you mentioned, in 2016, and since then they've decidedly come through in each election, particularly Michael Healy-Rae. Kerry at the moment is a 5-seat constituency as one county. In the last election, he stormed home, got full first preference on the full quota, 18,000 votes in the first go, and Danny was very confidently there for the rest of the counts of the votes and got in. And so you can see there how confident, I suppose, and how well-oiled their operation is. And even, I know something you were writing about this week, Mary, about how the fact that they've published, in local media and given out pamphlets about, splitting the county down the middle, putting a picture of Danny on one side and a picture of Michael on the other, and saying, if you live here and you want to vote for Healy-Rae, give your 1 in this way and your 2 in this way. So the vote management is extremely strong there. And that's what those people, I suppose, that's what their voters have become accustomed to in Kerry.
And it's a bit like those Russian dolls. Like once you open one, there's another Healy-Rae, and then you open, there's another Healy-Rae. There's a couple of generations of Healy-Rae. So we spoke about Jackie. Michael and Danny. But then when you go to the next generation, there is Jackie Healy-Rae Jr., there is Michael and Johnny Healy-Rae. And a lot of this split or this row comes down to the succession plan for the next generation, doesn't it?
Well, I think a lot of political parties, and the Healy-Raes could be classed as some sort of a political party, certainly a political family, are looking at their succession plans at the moment and seeing where this is all going. And certainly this is, as Michael Healy-Rae said this week, is causing the brand Healy-Rae to do a lot of soul searching and indeed succession searching. So as you mentioned there, so Johnny Healy-Rae, who is Danny's eldest son, he's in his 40s, he's a sitting councillor in Kenmare. Then you have Maura Healy-Rae, she's 35, she's Danny's eldest daughter and she's a sitting councillor in Killarney. And then you have Jackie Healy-Rae Jr., who's in his 30s, early 30s, and he's Michael's son, and he actually served as Michael's, as I mentioned, special advisor when he was in the Department of Agriculture. Now the question is who will stand where and who steps up to the plate. So there are now questions, and I suppose Michael Healy-Rae is seen to be wanting his son to be his running mate the next time around. There's no question, I suppose, over Michael Healy-Rae standing in the next election. He seems as politically fierce as ever. This interview talking about how he wants to see himself back in government at some point, that he wants to exert that influence and he wants to get it back again. And it seems that he wants this succession plan to focus on his son. However, Danny holds the seat, so you have to question whether, I suppose Danny as well, he's in his early 70s. By the time the next election will come around, he'll be in his mid-70s, but their father went on till he was nearly 80. So there's no question, I suppose, or there's a lot of questions over whether he would see fit to maybe not run the next time around and pass that baton on to Johnny or Maura. It's kind of seen that Maura would be Danny's succession plan there if he's going to pass on the crown that way. But the question is now whether we're going to see multiple Healy-Rae names on the ballot coming from the different factions of Danny and Michael, or whether they'll coalesce and work together again around brand Healy-Rae and decide on two candidates. Because there's certainly two seats there for them, as we've seen in the last number of elections. But if they start infighting and splitting the vote, then it becomes a lot more difficult. As I mentioned, they're councillors. Jackie Healy-Rae is a councillor in Castle Island. You know, they're all in different areas. So they are spread around. So they have a confident way of spreading their vote, I suppose, around their local areas where they're councillors. But at the same time, if they split the vote, they're at nothing. Now, there'll be another question as well, Mary, I suppose, come the next election, we're going to see a further change to our constituencies. How many seats there is in each constituency and even the boundary of them. So Kerry will certainly be one that will be looked at again. There are some questions whether Kerry could be split into two constituencies, whether it could get another seat and be a 6-seat constituency. Certainly having two constituencies might help the Healy-Raes. They could literally branch off into either and not disrupt either one. But it will depend on where that line falls with the Electoral Commission deciding on the new boundaries and the new constituencies, which makes for extremely exciting political viewing coming up to the next election because the stakes are very high.
And the continuity Healy-Raes prospect of running. You spent the last weekend in a nearby constituency with the Soc Dem leader Holly Cairns, and she is really having a big moment, not just the victory in the by-elections in Dublin Central for her. Her party seems to be on a roll, but she also has more good news on a personal front, doesn't she?
Yes, so she released that she released the news that she is expecting another child come the autumn. So she already has a daughter who's 18 months old. She hasn't released the daughter's name publicly or spoken, I suppose, in direct terms about her publicly, and is conscious to not even share her face on social media, so protecting her daughter that way. But she released a picture of her baby daughter holding a picture of a sonogram, saying that she had exciting news to share, that her and her partner Barry were expecting another child, be it a girl or a boy, we don't yet know, but that will come in the autumn next year. And as we know, Holly Cairns, I suppose, marked a moment of history when she went out on maternity leave as the first party leader to do so, following up after Helen McEntee became the first sitting cabinet minister to take maternity leave on 2 separate occasions for the birth of both of her sons while she was a sitting justice minister.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing, because I remember not so long ago when I was having a discussion with people in Leinster House about a potential reshuffle. We were talking about Helen McEntee and Fine Gael, and someone said, well, she can't become minister because, you know, she's going to be having her family soon. And then she did. She went on maternity leave as minister, and the sky didn't fall in. So things have really changed, even though women are not getting, you know, specific maternity leave as politicians. It seems that, you know, women like Holly Cairns and Helen McEntee are showing, yes, it can be done, and we can have both a good political career and a family.
Absolutely. And it marks, I suppose, a new era of, I suppose, more maybe young women occupying those powerful roles. That happens across business as well. You know, you'll often see interim CEOs standing in for maternity leave. It's becoming more and more common as I said, more women of that age are occupying those powerful roles in society.
Which you will hope would encourage more women to get involved in politics and know that it's a career that they can have while having a family.
And I think this is why, and I suppose there's questions over, you know, would her maternity leave, Holly Cairns' maternity leave, affect her popularity? She was on maternity leave from the minute the last general election. They all came back from the general election. She was on mat leave until late last year, essentially. And that didn't hurt her, because her popularity at the moment is on a high. She's on 39% approval rating, the most popular political or Dáil party leader in the country. So it doesn't seem to have affected her there. I actually would posit that it won't affect her the next time either, and it actually could do a lot to help the Social Democrats and help her own brand, although I'm sure that is absolutely not why she is having another child, absolutely not. But I do think that there is a swathe of younger voters, people who are interested in politics, business and society, who see a lot of the older generation represented and not their generation, who are the home buying, children having, mat leave taking generation, who struggle with juggling all those things and maybe don't see that reflected politically. And she represents that for some people. And if you can't see it, you can't be it. There's definitely a problem with women getting into politics. Less than a quarter of the Dáil, less than a quarter of TDs are women. And that is an issue. It's something that they are actually concerting money to help attract women into politics. And political parties have an obligation to run a certain number of female candidates, and they can't just be ballot holders and you know taking up a name in the ticket. You have to be running credible candidates. It's getting more competitive for all the parties. You have to run credible candidates, and they themselves have to expect that they're going to go into the Dáil or political office, the cabinet, whatever, and be able to have a child if that's what they, you know, if that's the time in their life that they're there.
And one of the problems is the unfamily friendly sitting times in the Dáil, and that's just not just deterring women from politics, it's also deterring some men from politics, men who have been involved and decided not to continue their careers in politics. But it also is a big put off for women, and that is the Dáil sitting sometimes after midnight. And that's not really compatible with family or any sort of personal life. You spoke to Holly Cairns. Like, what did she have to say about those crazy Dáil hours and her role, you know, as raising a small child?
Yeah, so I mean, and it's the perennial problem. It's the problem that's constantly talked about, and no one seems to be able to figure out a way to address it. And I suppose, you know, one of the big steps was that they brought into law that you are able to take mat leave as a TD, at least. That was one thing they did. I think it was in 2024, and that was seen as a big step, I suppose. But a lot, like when you talk about like Irish law, everyone else is able to take mat leave under law, but the TDs weren't. So that was a corrective measure. But if that's only how far they're catching up, I can't see changing the Dáil schedule to suit family life anytime soon. It will take a lot longer. You mentioned there like other TDs who have left politics because of family life demands. I suppose one notable one would be the Fine Gael TD for Kerry, Brendan Griffin. He was very open about how the life of a TD wasn't very family friendly. He has two young children. He had two young children at the time as well, and talked very openly about how that and both the geography of being from Kerry made his job very difficult. And you've to think about that. I know in Donegal, similarly, other TDs there have talked about how difficult that is for them getting down to Dublin. And actually something Holly Cairns mentioned, she said, you could make an argument to have Dáil sitting days be 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. But then actually for the people coming from much further geographical areas, it's actually more days away from your family. So that's not an answer either. And it's certainly not straightforward. But she was saying that the geography is the most difficult part for them at the moment. It's very difficult. I mean, even during COVID, they had to move heaven and earth to even get the TDs to sit over in the convention centre and to make that some sort of a legal setting for our parliament to take place. And it just shows you how inflexible the system is. And I think it would take, really radical thought processes around how our parliament works in order to change that. I think as well in other countries around the world, they're geographically bigger, and they still make it to the national parliament. You have to question is when you're elected to the Dáil, are you a national politician or are you still constituency first? And I suppose that's where Irish politics differs greatly, because the local element of your brief and what you're doing as a TD is the strongest. Whereas in other countries around the world, it actually kind of fades when you start to get elected to national politics. You're seen as more of a national figure.
What else did Holly Cairns have to say to you for that Sunday Independent interview? Because her party, the Social Democrats, is one of the sort of moving forces now that is potentially one of the many moving forces that's potentially, reshaping Irish politics. So where does she see things going? So
interestingly, I suppose the most prevalent question, or the question on everyone's lips, is there going to be some sort of a left-wing alliance ahead of the next general election, which is going to be in late 2029? And given, as you mentioned, the Social Democrats' electoral success in the by-election, Holly Cairns' own popularity, and the fact that they now have 12 TDs, was that going to push them to make any sort of alliance to maybe increase their success? So Holly Cairns said that the message of vote left, transfer left is the extent of any agreement she wants her party to get into. Essentially, she's not going to be signing up to Ivana Bacik, the leader of the Labour Party's advances to have a Green Party, Labour Party and Social Democrats alliance. She's been courting them very strongly even before the last general election, talking about how those three parties had more in common than, I suppose, the rest, especially that of Sinn Féin. Ivana Bacik saying that she will never accept or has never accepted that Sinn Féin is a party of the left. But interestingly, Holly Cairns is very much not ruling them out. I think what you're seeing there is the fact that the Social Democrats, they're not seeing votes coming from Labour or the Green Party, because there's not very much votes between them anyways. They're looking at where is the bigger piece of the pie. And right now, that's the floating voter, or at least the people that maybe have floated in and out of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, or those who vote for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael but maybe would like to see something different but don't want to vote for Sinn Féin. So there's a cohort of people there that they want to peel off. There was certainly a movement of change or a perception that people wanted change when Sinn Féin were at like over 30% in the polls, and they're nowhere near that at the moment. And there's a thought process, I think, with the Social Democrats that could be captured upon for them. That they're not Sinn Féin diehards, those people. They're people that saw maybe Sinn Féin as an alternative, and now they don't see them as an alternative. Maybe there's fatigue with them being the main opposition party for so long, fatigue with them promising change and never being there in government formation talks. Now, Sinn Féin would have opposite opinions on that, saying that they've been kept out of talks by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. But then again, if you've given them your vote for 2 elections and you haven't seen a different outcome, you're probably going to be a bit fatigued by that promise. So I think that's where she's focusing. She may have to change her mind, or the Social Democrats as a party may have to reevaluate that, depending on which way the tide is flowing at the time of the next election. We don't know what kind of position we're going to be in. Also, what way are Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael going to go? They're very much, since they historically went into coalition in 2020, they've come increasingly more like each other. There's less of a difference between them, and they're seen as maybe one cohort, one party. If that is increased before the next election, that will also change the dynamic of how people vote.
Well, as Michael Healy-Rae said, a week used to be a long time in politics, and now 2 minutes is a long time in politics. And that is it from Indo Politics for now. If you liked, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow all the political updates, news and analysis on the Irish Independent.